They were on the brink of superstardom, changing the face of rock music with their cutting-edge sound. But then, really out of nowhere, they vanished. Now, what really happened to Be Bop Deluxe? Was it creative differences, pressure from the industry, or something no one saw coming? Let's dive into the fascinating rise and fall of one of the rock's most overlooked bands by looking at the release of their albums. Now, Be Bop Deluxe were an innovative, genre-defying band from the 1970s that never quite fit in neatly into any category. Led by guitarist and songwriter Bill Nelson, they combined glam rock, progressive rock, and elements of jazz and classical music. This is the story of their rise and fall from their early days to their eventual breakup in 1978. It all began in Wakefield in England in 1972 when Bill Nelson, a talented and ambitious guitarist, set out to form a band. The first incarnation of Be Bop Deluxe featured Ian Parkin on rhythm guitar, Robert Bryan on bass, and Nicholas Chatterton-Dew on drums. But this lineup really didn't last very long at all. Now, although the band's early performances had caught some attention, Nelson really felt that the group's sound needed to change. Soon, most of the original members had left, and Bill would take the band in a completely different direction. So it was that in 1974, Be Bop Deluxe released their debut album, Axe Victim. Now, at this point, the band had become more of a vehicle for Bill Nelson's vision, really, than a cohesive unit. Now, the album showcased his impressive guitar skills and lyrical imagination, but it still carried a heavy glam rock influence, with critics often comparing Nelson to David Bowie, of all people. The critics were mixed. Melody Maker noted that Nelson's guitar virtuosity, but felt that the album lacked cohesion. Now, despite this, tracks like Axe Victim and Jet Silver and the Dolls of Venus hinted at Nelson's more experimental future. Now, after Axe Victim, Nelson decided to overhaul the band again. He recruited bassist Paul Jeffries and keyboardist Milton Ream James for a short period, but the most significant change came when Simon Fox joined on drums, followed by Charlie Toomahai on bass. Now, with these new members, Nelson took the band into a much more progressive rock direction, blending intricate arrangements with a polished sound. Their second album, Futurama, this was released in 1975, and this time the band had a fuller, more futuristic sound to it, and Nelson had begun experimenting with more ambitious songwriting. Standout tracks like Made in Heaven and Sis the Seagull showed a band evolving, moving away from glam rock into more progressive territory. This time, critics were much more favourable. New Musical Express called the album a bold step forward and praised its inventive melodies and fearless guitar work. The band also toured extensively in support of Futurama, gaining a dedicated fanbase in both the UK and US. 1976 saw the release of Sunburst Finish, considered by many to be the Be Bop Deluxe's best work, featuring hits like Ships in the Night, which would become their only UK top 10 single. The album was a commercial success, no doubt about it. Nelson's guitar work was at its peak and the band had truly hit their stride. Reviewers hailed Sunburst Finish as a masterpiece. Rolling Stone called it an album of rare intelligence and creativity, while Melody Maker chimed in with a brilliant fusion of rock, classical and jazz. But later that same year, Be Bop Deluxe released Modern Music. Now, this album showcased more of Nelson's interest in American culture and the disillusionment of modern life. Now, the band had just completed a major US tour, and the experience heavily influenced this album. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. But while not as commercially successful as Sunburst Finish, Modern Music received critical praise for its ambitious theme and intricate production. Tracks like the title track and Down on Terminal Street were example of Nelson's continued experimentation. But by 1978, Bill Nelson had grown restless. seeking new ways to push the band's sound. With the release of their final studio album, Drastic Plastic, this moved them into a new wave direction with electronic influences and more synthesizers. There were songs like Electrical Language and New Mysteries, and these reflected Nelson's shift towards a more modern, stripped-down sound. This time, the album received mixed reactions. Now, whilst NME admired the album's bold departure and forward-thinking vision, other critics found it confusing and less cohesive than some of their earlier work. But despite a loyal fanbase and critical acclaim, Be Bop Deluxe simply couldn't maintain commercial momentum. The band had toured to support Drastic Plastic, but Bill Nelson's dissatisfaction with the band's direction just simply grew. So it was that later that year, he disbanded the band, deciding to pursue a solo career. Now, in interviews, he mentioned he felt restricted by the expectations of being a guitar hero and wanted to explore more experimental music without the pressure of a band setting. So although Be Bop Deluxe were never a huge commercial success, their unique blend of genres and Nelson's groundbreaking guitar work left a lasting impact on the music world. Artists like Radiohead and the Smashing Pumpkins have cited Be Bop Deluxe as a major influence to their style. Nelson himself has continued to release solo albums and work on various projects, remaining a highly respected figure in the world of progressive and experimental music. And although Be Bop Deluxe's journey was brief, it was impactful. Their music remains a testament to his creativity and the band's abilities to push boundaries. From those glam rock beginnings to electronic experimentation, their catalogue is a fascinating exploration of 1970s rock at its most innovative. Now, I've recorded a review of their best album, Sunburst Finish, and that's the video I want you to watch next. I'm going to see you over there.